When you feel surrounded by trouble, when doors keep closing, when prayers seem unanswered, and when your heart is tired from carrying burdens nobody understands, God is saying to you today, don't panic, I'm turning it around. Too many people are allowing fear to speak louder than faith. They see the economy, the disappointment, the betrayal, the sickness, the delay, and they start believing that their story is over. But just because you cannot see God moving does not mean he has stopped working. God operates beyond what your eyes can see. While you are worried about the problem, God is already arranging the solution. Sometimes God will allow situations to look impossible so that when the breakthrough happens, nobody gets the credit except him. If every door had opened easily, you would trust the door. But when every human option fails, you learn to trust God. And there are moments in life when God intentionally removes your dependence on people so you can discover his supernatural. L power. Many people panic because they think delay means defeat. But delay is not denial. God's timing is different from your timing. You may want immediate answers, but God sees the full picture. He knows what must happen before the blessing arrives. He knows who must leave your life, what character must grow inside you, and what lessons must be learned before you step into the next season. Some of you are frustrated because life is not moving as fast as you expected. You prayed, believed, worked hard, and still things did not change overnight. But God says, do not panic in the waiting season. Seeds grow underground before they ever break through the surface. Just because you cannot see movement does not mean growth is not happening. Fear has a way of magnifying problems. Panic makes small obstacles look like giant mountains. Fear tells you you will never recover, you will never succeed, nothing will change. But faith speaks differently. Faith says, if God brought me this far, or he will not abandon me now. Faith reminds you that God has a history of turning impossible situations around. There are people listening right now who feel emotionally exhausted. You smile in front of others, but inside you are fighting silent battles. You have cried private tears and asked secret questions. But God sees every moment of pain you have carried. Heaven has not ignored your struggle. And here is the good news. God can turn around situations faster than you think. One phone call can change your future. One opportunity can restore what was lost. One moment of favor can open doors nobody could shut. God does not need years to fix what has been broken. When his appointed time arrives, everything can shift suddenly. But while you wait for the turnaround, you must protect your mindset. Do not allow negative voices to poison your spirit. Some people will speak defeat over your life because they cannot see what God has planned for you. Stop listening to people who only feed. Your fear, stay connected to faith. Stay connected to prayer. Stay connected to hope. Remember this, storms do not last forever. Pain does not last forever. Delays do not last forever. God has the final word over your life. The chapter you are in now is not the end of the story. The very thing that tried to break you may become the testimony that strengthens somebody else. The struggle that made you cry may become proof of God's faithfulness. Your setback may become the setup for a greater purpose. So today, stand firm. Refuse to surrender to panic. Refuse to quit in the middle of the process. God is still working behind the scenes. He is arranging blessings you cannot yet see. He is opening doors you thought were permanently closed. He is preparing restoration after loss, peace after confusion, and joy after sorrow. God is saying to you right now, do not panic, I'm turning it around. There are moments in life when everything around you feels unstable. The pressure increases that. Problems multiply and the future becomes unclear. You pray for answers, but instead of immediate change, you face more waiting. You try to stay strong, but fear keeps whispering that things are falling apart. In seasons like these, many people begin to question whether God is still paying attention to their lives. But the truth is this, God has never lost control, not for 1 second. Not in your pain, not in your confusion, and not in the middle of your struggle. Human beings often panic when they cannot predict what will happen next. We like certainty. We like comfort. We like to feel that everything is under control. But life has a way of reminding us that our plans are limited. Situations can change overnight. A conversation can alter your future. A setback can shake your confidence. And when life becomes unpredictable, fear tries to take over the mind. Fear tells you that because things are difficult, God must be distant. But difficulty is not proof of God's absence. God is number. Nervous about the problems that make you anxious? The situation that keeps you awake at night has not caught heaven by surprise? While you are trying to figure everything out, God already sees the ending from the beginning. He sees what you cannot see. He knows what you do not know. He understands why certain doors closed, why certain people left, and why certain battles had to happen. Sometimes God allows situations that force you to stop depending on your own strength. As long as everything is comfortable, people tend to rely on themselves. But when the pressure increases and human solutions fail, you begin to discover the power of trusting God completely. That is why some storms enter your life, not to destroy you, but to reposition your faith. There are people who thought they would already be healed by now. Others believed they would already be successful, financially stable, or emotionally restored. But instead, they are still waiting. Waiting can be painful because it tests your patience and challenges your confidence in God. Yet even in waiting, God remains in control. Silence does not mean abandonment. Delay does not mean defeat. Many times, God is working behind the scenes in ways you cannot recognize yet. Just because you cannot see movement does not mean nothing is happening. A seed underground looks invisible before it becomes visible. Growth often happens in hidden places first. God may be preparing opportunities you cannot yet imagine. He may be removing distractions before your breakthrough arrives. He may be strengthening your character before elevating your position. The enemy wants people to believe that chaos means God has stopped working. But throughout life, God has shown his ability to bring order out of confusion. He can bring peace into troubled homes. He can restore damaged relationships. He can provide in seasons of lack. He can open doors nobody else can open. Human limitations do not limit God. Some of the greatest blessings come after the hardest seasons. There are testimonies that would never exist without struggle. Strength is often developed in difficult places. Wisdom grows through painful experiences. Faith becomes stronger when it survives pressure. The battle you are facing today may actually be preparing you for the purpose God has planned tomorrow. When people focus only on what they see, discouragement grows quickly. But faith requires you to believe beyond visible circumstances. It means trusting God even when emotions are unstable. It means believing that God is still writing your story even when the current chapter feels painful. You cannot always control what happens around you, but you can control where your trust is placed. If your trust is only in money, people, or circumstances, fear will dominate your life whenever those things change. But when your trust is rooted in God, you gain stability even during uncertainty. You begin to understand that temporary trouble cannot cancel eternal promise. CS. God's control is not limited by the economy, by opposition, by rejection, or by delay. He has the power to shift situations at the right time. One moment of favor can change years of struggle. One answered prayer can reverse impossible conditions. One breakthrough can erase seasons of discouragement. That is why you must guard your heart against panic. Panic clouds judgment and weakens faith. Fear causes people to make desperate decisions. But trusting God produces peace even before the answer arrives. Peace comes from knowing that God is already ahead of you. He is already in tomorrow while you are still worrying about today. The pressure may be real, but God is greater than the pressure. The obstacle may be large, but God is greater than the obstacle. The delay may feel long, but God's timing is still perfect. Even now, while you are questioning how things will work out, God is still in control of every detail of your life. One of the hardest things people experience in life is waiting on God while nothing seems to change. You pray with faith, believe with expectation, and hope for breakthrough, but instead of immediate answers, you encounter silence, delay, and uncertainty. In those moments, frustration begins to grow because human nature wants quick results. People often assume that if God does not respond immediately, he must not be listening. But delay is not denial. Just because the answer has not arrived yet does not mean God has forgotten you. Many people have walked away from their dreams too early because they misunderstood the waiting season. They assumed that closed doors meant permanent rejection. They believed unanswered prayers meant God was against them. But sometimes God delays things because he is preparing something greater than what you originally expected. What feels like a setback may actually be divine protection. There are moments when people ask God for blessings they are not yet prepared to handle. They want success without mature, influence without wisdom, and elevation without character development. But God sees beyond the present moment. He understands what your future requires. He knows what must be strengthened inside you before certain opportunities arrive. Waiting seasons reveal what is truly inside a person. Anybody can trust God when life is easy, but real faith is tested when nothing seems to move. Waiting exposes fear, impatience, pride, and doubt. Yet at the same time, it also develops endurance, humility, discipline, and spiritual strength. The process is uncomfortable, but growth often happens in uncomfortable places. Think about how many things in life require time before they become valuable. Trees do not grow overnight. Muscles are not built in a day. Wisdom does not appear instantly. Strong foundations take time to build. In the same way, God often works gradually because lasting transformation cannot always happen quickly. Sometimes people become discouraged because they compare their journey with others. They look around and wonder why somebody else seems blessed while they are still struggling. But comparison creates unnecessary frustration because every person's timing is different. God is not writing the same story for everyone. Some people experience quick breakthroughs while others go through longer preparation seasons. But longer preparation does not mean less favor. In many cases, greater assignments require deeper preparation. There are blessings that look good on the surface but would destroy a person who receives them too early. Imagine receiving massive responsibility before developing emotional maturity. Imagine stepping into influence before learning humility. God delays certain things because he cares about your future more than your temporary comfort. People often pray for open doors without realizing that God is also closing dangerous doors they cannot see. Some relationships ended because God knew they would eventually damage your peace. Some opposite. Opportunities disappeared because they were distractions from your purpose. Some disappointments were actually acts of protection. But in the middle of pain, it is difficult to recognize that God may be saving you from future regret. Waiting seasons also teach dependence on God instead of dependence on circumstances. When everything happens instantly, people often forget the source of their blessings. But when you go through seasons where only God can sustain you, your relationship with him becomes deeper. Prayer becomes more sincere. Faith becomes stronger. Gratitude becomes more genuine. The danger during delay is allowing discouragement to become permanent. Some people stop believing because they have waited too long. They lose passion, lose hope, and start expecting disappointment instead of breakthrough. But God does not operate according to human deadlines. Just because something has taken longer than expected does not mean it will never happen. There are moments when everything can change suddenly. Years of struggle can shift in one season. One opportunity can erase years of frustration. One connection can open doors that seemed impossible. God has a way of making things happen at the appointed time. And when his timing arrives, no person, obstacle, or circumstance can stop what he has planned. The challenge is remaining faithful while you wait. It is easy to trust God after the breakthrough comes, but true faith continues trusting before the answer appears. Faith says, even if I do not understand the process, I still believe God is working. Faith refuses to surrender to bitterness during difficult seasons. You may not understand why things are taking longer than expected. You may feel exhausted from waiting, praying, and hoping, but God sees the full picture while you only see one moment. He knows when the timing is right. He knows when the preparation is complete. He knows when the blessing will help you instead of harming you. The delay you are experiencing, answering today, may actually become the reason you are stronger tomorrow. The waiting season may be shaping wisdom, patience, and faith that you could not develop any other way. And even when it feels like nothing is changing, God is still working behind the scenes, arranging details you cannot yet see. Fear has a powerful way of controlling people's lives. It enters the mind quietly, grows through negative thoughts, and slowly steals peace, confidence, and hope. Many people are not defeated by their actual problems. They are defeated by the fear surrounding those problems. Fear causes people to expect the worst before anything even happens. It convinces them that failure is inevitable, that nothing will improve, and that their situation is beyond repair. That is why fear is so dangerous. It does not just affect emotions, it affects vision, decisions, and faith. When panic takes over, people stop thinking clearly. They begin making emotional decisions instead of wise ones. Panic magnifies obstacles and minimizes possibilities. A challenge that might have been manageable suddenly feels impossible because fear enlarges it in the mind. Fear makes people focus entirely on what is wrong instead of remembering what God has already done. There are many people carrying hidden fear every day. Some are afraid of failure. Others fear rejection, financial collapse, sickness, loneliness, or uncertainty about the future. Even strong people can battle fear internally while appearing calm on the outside. Fear does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it hides behind stress, overthinking, anger, or constant worry. The problem with fear is that it demands control over your attention. Whatever controls your focus eventually influences your faith. If you constantly focus on negative outcomes, your faith weakens. But if you focus on God's promises, your confidence grows stronger. Fear and faith cannot dominate the mind at the same time. One will always overpower the other. Panic. Causes people to forget how many times God has already brought them through difficult seasons. When trouble appears, fear says, "This time is different. This time you will not survive." But faith reminds you of every past victory, every answered prayer, and every moment God made a way when there seemed to be no solution. Faith remembers what fear tries to erase. There are moments when life feels overwhelming. Bills increase, opportunities disappear, relationships become strained, and uncertainty surrounds every direction. In those moments, panic feels natural. Human emotions respond quickly to pressure. But God never intended for fear to become the ruler of your life. Fear may visit your mind, but it should not control your decisions. Many people allow fear to shape their future without realizing it. They avoid opportunities because they fear failure. They stay trapped in unhealthy situations because they fear change. They remain silent because they fear rejection. Fear keeps people stuck in places they were never meant to remain. It convinces them that safety is better than growth, even when growth is necessary for purpose. Faith works differently. Faith does not deny that problems exist, but it refuses to believe problems are greater than God. Faith says, "I may not understand everything right now, but I trust God to guide me." Faith gives people strength to keep moving even when circumstances remain uncertain. One reason fear becomes so powerful is because people constantly feed it with negative thinking. They replay worst-case scenarios in their minds until anxiety becomes stronger than hope. They listen to discouraging voices, absorb hopeless conversations, and focus entirely on what could go wrong. But whatever you feed will grow. If you feed fear, fear becomes stronger. If you feed faith, faith becomes stronger. That is why protecting your mind is so important during difficult seasons. You cannot allow every negative voice to take root in your spirit. Some people spread fear because they themselves live in fear. They speak defeat over situations before anything has even happened. If you are not careful, constant negativity will slowly shape your perspective. Fear also causes people to doubt their own worth and potential. It whispers that they are too weak, too broken, too late, or too unqualified to fulfill their purpose. But God has never chosen people based on perfection. He works through imperfect individuals who are willing to trust Him despite weakness. Fear focuses on human limitation, while faith focuses on God's ability. There are situations where fear may not disappear immediately. Courage does not always mean the absence of fear. Sometimes courage means moving forward despite fear. It means choosing trust over panic even when emotions are unstable. Real faith often grows strongest in moments when people feel uncertain yet continue believing anyway. Panic creates confusion, but faith creates stability. Panic drains energy. Why? But faith renews strength. Panic says the situation is hopeless, but faith says God is still working. The enemy wants people trapped in fear because fear weakens confidence and destroys peace. But God calls people to live with trust instead of terror. You may not know exactly how things will work out. You may still face unanswered questions and difficult circumstances. But fear does not have to control your future. The same God who carried you through previous battles is still with you now. The pressure around you may feel intense, but panic is not the answer. Faith keeps your eyes fixed on the possibility that God can still make a way where none seems possible. Nobody enjoys going through struggles. Pain, pressure, disappointment, and hardship are uncomfortable realities that people naturally try to avoid. When life becomes difficult, the first reaction is often to ask, why is this happening to me? People want immediate relief from suffering because struggle feels heavy and exhausting. But many do not realize that some of the greatest growth in life is developed during the hardest seasons. God has a way of using struggles to build strength that comfort could never produce. Easy seasons may bring happiness, but difficult seasons often bring transformation. Pressure reveals what is truly inside a person. Challenges expose weaknesses, attitudes, fears, and areas that still need growth. Without struggle, many people would never discover the strength God placed within them. They would remain comfortable, dependent, and spiritually immature. There are qualities that cannot develop without adversity. Patience is formed while waiting. Endurance is built during pressure. Wisdom grows through mistakes and painful experiences. Courage is developed when fear must be confronted. Faith becomes stronger when it survives uncertainty. The very things people pray for often require difficult preparation. Many people ask God for strength, but strength is not created in comfort. TA athletes become stronger through resistance. Muscles grow through pressure and repetition. In the same way, spiritual strength develops through challenges that force people to trust God beyond their own ability. Without resistance, there is no growth. Some struggles enter your life not because God has abandoned you, but because He is preparing you for something greater. There are assignments, responsibilities, and blessings that require maturity. If God gave certain opportunities too early, some people would collapse under the pressure because they lack the inner strength to sustain them. That is why preparation seasons are necessary. Pain also has a way of teaching lessons that success often cannot teach. During successful seasons, people sometimes become prideful, distracted, or dependent on temporary things. But struggles have a way of humbling the heart and redirecting attention back to God. Hard seasons remind people how much they truly need Him. There are individuals who died, discovered their purpose only after experiencing hardship. Some learned compassion because they went through suffering themselves. Others developed wisdom because they survived painful mistakes. Many testimonies that inspire people today were born from seasons of struggle nobody wanted to experience. The danger is that many people misunderstand difficult seasons. They assume every hardship means failure. They believe struggle is proof that God is against them. But struggle does not always mean punishment. Sometimes struggle is preparation. Sometimes God allows pressure because He is shaping character that cannot be developed any other way. Think about how valuable diamonds are formed. Diamonds are created under intense pressure over time. Gold must pass through fire to remove impurities. Strong trees survive storms because resistance strengthens their roots. In the same way, God often uses life's pressures to develop spiritual stability inside people. When everything in life is easy, people often rely on their own ability. But struggles force people into deeper dependence on God. Prayer becomes more sincere during hard seasons. Faith becomes more meaningful when circumstances are uncertain. Difficult moments often create a closer relationship with God because people recognize their need for Him more clearly. Struggles also teach endurance. One of the greatest dangers in life is quitting too early. Many people give up because they cannot see immediate progress. They walk away from purpose during painful seasons without realizing breakthrough may be closer than they think. But endurance is built when you continue moving forward despite obstacles. Some of the strongest people are not those who never face pain, but those who kept trusting God while carrying pain. Strength is not the absence of struggle. Strength is the ability to continue despite struggle. Anybody can stay positive when everything goes according to plan, but real strength appears when life becomes difficult. There are battles happening right now that feel unfair and exhausting. Some people are carrying emotional burdens nobody else sees. Others are facing financial stress, broken relationships, disappointments, or personal failures. In those moments, it is easy to feel defeated. But what feels like breaking may actually be building. God often develops people privately before using them publicly. Before elevation comes preparation. Before victory comes testing. Before promotion comes refinement. The process may feel uncomfortable, but the process is producing something valuable inside you. Struggles can either make people bitter or make them stronger. The difference is found in perspective. If you only focus on the pain, discouragement will grow. But if you understand that God can use difficulty for growth, your perspective changes. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin asking, what is God developing inside me through this? The pressure you are experiencing. Sing today may be producing strength you will need tomorrow. The battle you are fighting may prepare you to help others later. The struggle that feels heavy now may eventually become part of the testimony that inspires somebody else not to give up. Even when life feels difficult, God is still working through the process. He is shaping endurance, wisdom, patience, and faith inside you. And when the season changes, you may realize that the struggle you once wanted removed was actually the very thing God used to make you stronger than before. There are moments in life when everything appears broken beyond repair. Dreams collapse, relationships fail, opportunities disappear, and people begin to wonder if things will ever improve again. Pain has a way of convincing individuals that their current situation will last forever. When disappointment continues for too long, hope becomes difficult to hold on to. But one of the greatest truths people must remember is this: God specializes in tornado. Und es. He has the power to take situations that seem hopeless and transform them into testimonies of restoration, purpose, and victory. Many people think their story is over simply because they are in a painful chapter. They mistake temporary struggle for permanent defeat. But just because you are facing difficulty today does not mean tomorrow cannot look completely different. Life can change suddenly. One breakthrough can reverse years of frustration. One answered prayer can shift everything. The enemy wants people trapped in discouragement because hopeless people stop expecting change. Once individuals lose hope, they often stop praying, stop believing, and stop pursuing purpose. Discouragement whispers that nothing will ever improve. It tells people they have missed their opportunity, gone too far, or suffered too much. But God is not limited by human failure, delay, or brokenness. Some of the most powerful testimonies come from people who once believed their situation could never change. There are individuals who recovered after devastating loss, rebuilt after failure, found peace after heartbreak, and discovered purpose after painful seasons. What looked impossible at one point became proof of God's ability to restore. God has a way of bringing beauty out of brokenness. He can use painful experiences to create wisdom, compassion, strength, and maturity. The very struggle that almost destroyed you may later become the story that encourages someone else not to quit. What once felt meaningless can eventually become part of a greater purpose. There are times when people focus so much on what they lost that they cannot see what God is still capable of doing. Yes, some doors closed. Yes, some plans failed. Yes, some relationships ended. But God's power is not limited to what happened in the past. He can create new opportunities, new beginnings, and new possibilities even after disappointment. Sometimes the turnaround does not happen the way people expect. Minnie West. Instant change, immediate restoration, and quick solutions. But God often works through processes. He gradually rebuilds confidence, heals wounds, restores peace, and opens new doors at the right time. The process may feel slow, but movement is still happening. One of the greatest challenges during difficult seasons is continuing to believe while circumstances remain unchanged. It is easy to have faith after the breakthrough arrives, but real faith believes before visible evidence appears. Faith says, even though I do not see the answer yet, I still trust God is working behind the scenes. People often underestimate how quickly God can change a situation. A season of suffering can suddenly shift into a season of favor. One opportunity can introduce you to the people connected to your future. One conversation can redirect your life. One moment of divine favor can accomplish what years of human effort could not achieve. The problem is that many people give up too early. They walk away during the process because they become exhausted by waiting. They allow disappointment to convince them that nothing good is ahead. But sometimes breakthrough is closest when frustration feels strongest. The darkest moments often come right before a new season begins. God's turnaround power is not limited by human limitations. He can restore what people thought was permanently lost. He can open doors that nobody else can open. He can make a way where there appears to be no path forward. Human logic may say the situation is impossible, but God does not operate according to human limitations. There are people carrying silent pain right now. Some feel emotionally drained after repeated disappointment. Others feel trapped by mistakes from the past. Some are battling fear because life has not unfolded the way they expected. But God's ability to restore is greater than any failure, heartbreak, or setback. Pain may have affected your confidence, but it cannot cancel God's purpose for your life. Delays may have frustrated you, but they cannot stop God's timing. Rejection may have wounded you, but it does not define your future. Your current struggle is only one chapter, not the entire story. Sometimes God allows people to reach the end of their own strength so they can finally depend completely on Him. As long as individuals believe they can control everything themselves, they often overlook the need for God's guidance. But difficult seasons create opportunities for deeper faith and greater trust. The turnaround may not happen overnight, but every season eventually changes. Storms do not last forever. Pain does not remain forever. Difficult chapters eventually pass. What feels heavy today can become the testimony that strengthens you tomorrow. God is still able to reverse impossible situations. He is still able to restore peace after chaos, joy after sorrow, and hope after disappointment. Even now, while circumstances may look uncertain, God is still working beside. In the scenes. The same situation that caused tears today may eventually become the evidence that God never stopped working in your life. There are seasons in life when people feel emotionally and spiritually exhausted because they have been carrying burdens for too long. The pressure becomes heavy, the disappointments become repeated, and the mind slowly fills with doubt. In those moments, many begin questioning whether they still have the strength to continue. They wake up tired, go to sleep worried, and spend their days fighting silent battles nobody else can see. But even in those difficult moments, God is still calling His people to remain steady, faithful, and hopeful. One of the enemy's greatest strategies is to wear people down mentally before anything changes physically. If fear can control the mind, it eventually controls decisions, attitudes, and expectations. That is why so many people lose peace before they ever lose the battle itself. They become emotionally defeated. Long before circumstances actually defeat them, the mind becomes overwhelmed with thoughts like, nothing will ever change, I am too weak, or I cannot handle this anymore. But God never intended for people to live trapped in hopelessness. Difficult seasons have a way of testing emotional endurance. Some people are not only fighting external struggles, they are also battling internal exhaustion. They are tired of pretending to be strong, tired of carrying responsibilities alone, tired of waiting for answers, tired of praying without seeing immediate results. But exhaustion does not mean God has abandoned you. Even strong people become weary during hard seasons. Many individuals feel pressure because life did not unfold the way they expected. They imagined different outcomes, quicker progress, and easier journeys. Instead, they encountered setbacks, rejection, heartbreak, and delays. Over time, disappointment can slowly drain motivation and weaken confidence. People start surviving. Instead of truly living with hope and purpose, but God understands human weakness. He knows when hearts are tired. He sees the tears people hide from others. He hears silent prayers that never leave the lips. There are moments when people cannot even find the words to explain their pain, yet God still understands every emotion they carry. The danger of emotional exhaustion is that it can make temporary problems feel permanent. When the mind is tired, small obstacles appear larger than they really are. Discouragement clouds perspective. Fear exaggerates situations. That is why people must guard their thoughts carefully during difficult seasons. Negative thinking can become a prison that slowly steals peace, faith, and joy. There are many people who outwardly appear fine while inwardly they are struggling deeply. Some smile in public but cry in private. Some encourage others while secretly feeling empty themselves. Some continue showing up every day even though they feel emotionally drained inside. But God sees beyond outward appearances. He understands every hidden burden. One of the most important lessons during exhausting seasons is learning not to depend entirely on human strength. Human energy has limits. Human emotions fluctuate. Human confidence can collapse under pressure. But God offers strength that goes beyond natural ability. There are moments when people continue standing not because of their own power, but